Hey there, do-this-all-first. Today I'm going to show you how you can use a basic multimeter to test and diagnose problems with your ABS sensors. And hopefully after this video you'll be able to get rid of that annoying ABS and traction light that might have appeared on your dash. Alright, but before we go any further though, I should mention that if recently you've been driving in rain or maybe through dirt and mud, there's a good chance that some dirt and debris and mud has gone on the rings at the end of your CV shaft. And since these rings are for your ABS sensor to be able to sense how fast this shaft is turning, and if you get mud and dirt and debris on this, your sensor is not going to be able to read these correctly, and it's going to send a fault code to your ABS module, and then you'll get that ABS light. Alright, so if you're in that category, what I would do is just take my car to one of those self car wash places and then use the pressure washer to try to clean off the mud that's probably on the rings at the end of our axle shaft. So if you have an all-wheel ABS system, you're gonna have to clean all your wheels basically, and in order to clean them thoroughly, you're gonna have to get to them from the back of the wheel. So on the back ones, you're gonna have to get down on the ground and point the pressure washer from the back towards the inside of the wheel. On the front ones, you can just turn the steering wheels and expose the back of the steering knuckle, and that way you're gonna have an easier time cleaning it. And a lot of times, if your ABS just came on after driving through rain or muddy roads, this is going to help take care of your ABS light. Alright, what we need to do next is to get to our connectors for our ABS sensors. And on front wheels, a lot of times you can get to the connectors from up top. They're usually by your fenders on the front wheels. But on this car, it's an Audi and things are a little bit more jammed or more packed up front. And we probably would need to get to the connectors by removing our front wheels. But since I'm doing this video for demonstration purposes only, I'm going to show you how to do it on the rear wheel. Alright, so in order to get to the connectors for our rear ABS sensors, most of the time you can just remove the bottom cushion of your rear seat, and they're exposed underneath your cushion. And these cushions are usually pretty easy to remove. You can just pull on them, or sometimes there's one or two bolts on each side that you can remove before you can completely remove the cushion. This one's particularly easy. After you remove your bottom cushion, you're going to find your ABS sensor connector, and it's usually a connector that has either 2 or 3 wires. And there's going to be an identical one just like this on the other side for your other wheel. And if you have a sensor that has 3 wires, you're going to want to find your ground wire. The way you find your ground wire on a sensor that has 3 wires is that you first want to get your multimeter and set it to ohms to measure resistance, and then you want to get one of your test leads and you want to ground your test lead, and then you want to go to each wire and touch it with your other test lead, and the one that doesn't have any resistance to ground is going to be your ground wire. So you want to exclude that from your next test, which is to measure resistance between the 2 other wires for your ABS sensor. Based on your make and model, you're going to have different specifications for your resistance, as far as what your resistance should be for that sensor, but you know, you can just since we already have it on our multimeter on ohms, we're going to keep it on that, and then we're going to get our 2 test leads and touch the other 2 wires if you have a 3-wire sensor, or the 2 wires if you have a 2-wire sensor. As you can see, we got 1.2 thousand ohms, or in other words 1200 ohms of resistance in this sensor. Now I don't know if this is a good, and I don't know the specification for this car since I don't have the manual for this, but since I don't have an ABS light before I started doing this test, I'm going to assume that's the correct reading. So if your resistance readings are not within spec, you're going to have to go ahead and replace that sensor, but if they are, there's another test you can do that will help you for sure determine that that sensor is indeed a good sensor. Before we go any further, I should say that this next test will only work on ABS sensors that are passive ABS sensors. It won't be very helpful doing it on an active ABS sensor since they work very differently, and indeed I'm not too sure exactly how you would test those past the resistance test. But the way you can tell that you have an ABS sensor that's passive or active is that, well, first of all, like again we said, if you have 3 wires, that's an active ABS sensor, but also some active ABS sensors can also have only 2 wires. And the way you determine that is that you check for voltage on the harness side for that sensor with only 2 wires. And if you have anything from 4 to 12 volts, then that would make that sensor, that would say that that sensor is an active ABS sensor. Then if you have no voltage readings on either of these two wires, then that sensor is a passive ABS sensor. Of course, you can just check the voltage using your multimeter again. You set your multimeter setting to 20 DC volts, and then you ground one of your test leads to the body, and then get your other test lead and just touch one of the wires at a time. And then if you have voltage readings on your multimeter on, and again, anywhere from 4 to 12 volts, then you've determined that that's an active ABS sensor. And our next test is not really going to be applicable for those sensors. If you have no voltage being supplied to this sensor and you have a passive ABS sensor, then the next test is going to be to figure out the voltage output of this sensor. You know, most passive ABS sensors, they have a voltage output of anywhere from 0.05 volts to 0.8 volts AC. So in order to measure that, we're first going to get our multimeter again, go to AC volts, which is this lower setting here, and since our measurements are going to be below really 1 volt, we're going to set it to our lowest setting, which is 2 volts. And then we're going to connect both of our test leads again with these alligator clips to our ABS connector. What we're going to do next is to raise the side of the vehicle for which we are testing the ABS sensor for, and then we're going to spin the wheel by hand and then see our voltage reading. So this is our setup here. I'm going to spin this wheel, spin this pretty much as fast as we can, and then look at our reading. And as you can see also, it actually already got it up to 0.1. So in other words, right now we're at 150 millivolts, but let's spin this even faster. See how far we can get it. Alright, I think I got it up to like 0.3, 3.5, or in other words 350 millivolts, so that's well within spec. So this is a good ABS sensor. Alright, that's all there is to it. Now I should mention that this test would be a lot easier to do it at the module if you can access the connector that goes into your module. Now I'm not sure on this car, I haven't looked into it, but if you can access the connector that goes into your module, each one of the wires that go to each sensor run directly to your ABS module. And when you do the resistance test at the module though, once you find out that, you know, let's say the right rear ABS sensor has the resistance is off specification, you want to make sure that it's indeed the sensor and not the wiring from your module to the sensor. So again, you're going to have to come back here anyway and test the resistance at the connector for the sensor. And if the resistance is not within spec, then it is indeed the sensor. But if it is within spec, then there's a problem from on the wiring from the connector back here to your ABS module up front, or wherever your ABS module happens to be on your particular car. So with that said, I hope this video helps people out there. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more like it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.